Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth. And thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who is tuning in to today's episode and also into this podcast. And I truly hope that you are gaining and are going to gain value from this. As every week I drop a new episode on Sunday, just sharing some words, thoughts, things that I'm going through and learning on my own journey in life. Things for the first time, things that I'm just understanding in a different point of view, in hopes that hopefully it sparks some motivation or some inspiration for you to just really get after it in life. And if anything, just get a chance to know me a little bit better and the journey that I am on in my own life. So what I wanted to talk to you about in this week's episode was this idea of confronting our fears. I've heard, this acronym used with fear, and I know there's a couple different variations, but one of them that stands out recently was false evidence appearing real, FEAR. And, this idea that I think fear is really at the forefront of what holds us back from everything in life, from moving forward, right? And although it could feel as it's tangible, like grasp and hold on us physically and mentally, most times fear is just that, false evidence appearing real. It's more of an illusion than it actually is something. And if we can confront that fear and really understand what is actually holding us back, what it is about that thing that we do fear, then maybe we got a better chance of moving forward when we can confront it and realize more or less it's all up in our heads. It's not an actual physical force stopping us. You've never seen fear, have you? You've never met fear. Fear has never come knocking at your door, introducing itself like, hello, I'm here. My name is Fear. Nice to meet you. Again, a lot of times it's up here in our heads. And it comes with many different things, right? It comes with emotions, with doubts, with thoughts, with, incidents, situations, whatever it may be. But the bottom line is that fear is just a made-up thing. It's a four-letter word. And if we can confront it and realize that it really is most times just something that it's in our head, then maybe we could push forward. We can get past things. Because a lot of times we have a lot of fears in our life, right? Fear of taking that chance on something. Fear of taking a risk of something. Fear of being ourselves a lot of times because we fear people's judgment. We fear people's opinion. We fear what people are going to think or say. And again, a lot of times it's what keeps us in place and what keeps us where we are at. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, it's the biggest thing that will always hold us back. And if we can realize that it's just an illusion, it's just in our head, then maybe we can break this chain, we can break this barrier, we can break this chokehold it's got a hold of us to actually live our lives, And oftentimes I think about that fear of us being ourselves, right? Because it's the one thing that holds us back, is this fear again of people's judgment, from us living who we are naturally and want to be, because we're so worried about what people are going to say, what people are going to think. I think a lot of that stems from our growing up, always trying to fit in with groups. In high school too, you always wanted to be in the group and feel like you fit in. And sometimes you feel like who you are isn't what that crowd would accept or, would invite. And so you have this idea in your head because of that, as you've got into adulthood, that you've got to change everything about who you are naturally and who you want to be just to fit in, just to be approved. And I get that that's how society can be, but, unfortunately, we spend more time living in that fear and worried more about what people think than we actually will spending life, living how we want to, being happy, doing what we want, living how we want. I've gotten a lot older now thinking about that. And, the older you get, the more you realize, it's less about what people think and it's more about, are you happy? And although it could still be a trap that we're in, you begin to feel more free the less you are concerned about with what people think. And I think it always should be a goal, right? To let go of that fear and be who you are naturally. And one thing I've really thought about a lot when it comes to that specific thing is I think we try to fit in because we want people to approve us, right? And so we figure we have to check all these boxes, be a certain way, change everything about what God made you to be, which was special and unique and different, to fit in with the crowd so you can blend in. But I really believe that what people respect most and more, right? And again, it's a lot of the fear that makes you think that way, is someone who's bold enough to be themselves. You know, I think some of the most respected people, whether they're liked or not by the majority of people, you know, because everybody's got a different flavor and taste. That's how this world is. The one thing you have to understand, you're not going to make everybody like you regardless of how much you try anyway. So why even try a little bit, right? People are going to like you. People are not going to like you. You don't have to do things wrong or whatever to somebody for somebody to not like you. It's just the way it is. We all have different chemistries. We all have different things we like about certain people. And, you know, I don't think it should be taken personal. That's the way the world's supposed to be. It's called diversity for a reason, you know? But I think the most respected people, whether they're liked or hated by most, are probably respected because they're bold enough to be themselves without worrying about what other people say or think about them, you know? And it's because they let go of fear, right? They let go of the fear of people's judgment. They let go of fear of not being themselves. And that's the freest way that you're going to live. So again, this thing called fear is what holds us back from living our lives, you know, and it's something I go through all the time too, right? Fear of trying this new thing that could potentially be the thing that's going to change everything in my own life and for the life of the ones who I care and love for, right? You know, but this fear of whether it's going to work out or not, this fear of I'm going to make a situation worse, the fear of, you know, am I qualified? Can I do it? All those. But the one thing I've gained from, you know, things that I pay attention to, successful people that I've learned from, who I follow and aspire to be like, is that the rewards, the, you know, the results, the outcomes, you know, are on the other side of fear. And in order to get past that, you know, fear, once you get past it on the other side, most likely it's the thing that's going to change everything, right? If you have a fear of being judged by people, the ability to get on the other side of that fear and let go of what people think, the reward for that is getting to feel comfortable with who you are and being happy with who you naturally are without worrying about what people think or say, you know, and things like that. That's the reward. You get to feel what real freedom feels like. The fear of taking that risk or taking that chance or going down that path or pursuing that thing, that emotion of pushing past the fear on the other side is that reward is, again, something that could ultimately change your life, something that can improve your life, something that can, you know, better the quality of your life. But it's this idea, again, of confronting fear. And if we never confront our fears, we're going to be running our entire lives away from things that will ultimately make our lives better. From experiences to the quality of our lives to whatever it may be that's going to be on the other side of fear. The thing you have to understand the most, right, and that I try to understand more and more so with this, with saying it, is fear is made up. It's an emotion. It's a feeling. It's a thought. It's not a physical, tangible thing that can hold you back. Nobody really cares, you know, what you do or how you dress or how you talk, you know, all these different things, right? Again, people are going to like you one way or another regardless. And so to hold yourself captive to fear, you're not living your true self. You're not living your authentic self. You're not living a free yourself, which is, you know, a worse imprisonment, you know, than, you know, being in a prison cell, because you might as well be, right? If you let fear grab a hold of you and keep you where you're at and not allow you to progress forward. Something I have to remind myself of all the time is confronting this fear, asking myself, why am I scared of this thing? What is it about it? You know, is it my own insecurities? Is it, you know, Is it the expectations of what I'm going to get out of it? Is it judgment? All these different things. And how I try to confront fear myself is, what's the worst that can happen? I be myself. Somebody doesn't like it. Okay. For somebody who might not like me being myself, there's going to be somebody who likes it, right? When it's to taking that chance or taking that risk, what's the worst thing that could happen? It might not work out. Okay, well, I could try the next thing then maybe and see if that works out. And so doing my best to play the worst case scenarios in this idea of a fear that's holding me back, it's really not as bad as we think, right? And I think the illusion there at times as well is that we make it a bigger fear than what it really needs to be. You know, fear of starting that thing because you're afraid of looking silly or not good or dumb or whatever it may play in your head. Guess what? Everybody had to look that way when starting something new. Tell me there was something new that you started and you got it right off the bat, right? So confronting fear, just know that in the end, it's nothing but this up here playing tricks with ourselves. And I think if we can confront it and ask ourselves what's the biggest thing or the worst thing that can happen, we most of the time will then see it's not as bad as we thought. But the worst thing that we can do is live in fear, because God gave us this chance, this life, this opportunity to be who we want to be, to live how we want to be. But what good was it to give you that privilege, to give you that blessing, to give you that opportunity, if you never let go of those anchors and chains and break free from fear and actually live the life that God gave you? He created you to be different. He gave you a life separate from everybody else so you can do with it what you will. And if you constantly living in fear, then what was it worth, right? You know, and so those are things that I also think about as well. And every day more, just try to confront this idea of fear and realize, you know, it's my own head playing tricks on me and it's not a tangible thing. And as they say, the only thing to fear is fear itself. So just remember that the next time you're caught up with this, you know, emotion and thought process of fear, ask yourself, is this just false evidence appearing real? Is there anything really to be afraid of? And what's the worst that can happen? You know, and I think the more we can confront it, the more we realize it's not as scary as we thought, you know, and the better chance we have of moving forward and actually becoming happier and taking those chances and taking those risks. And then look at fear differently and realize that if we could push past that in anything that we are, do, or think, then we'll realize that the price to pay sometimes is that emotion of fear. But if we can learn to pay, to break past it and break through it, on the other side is bliss. On the other side is satisfaction. On the other side is reward. On the other side is something far better than that fear that we had during that process. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I will see you on the next one.